It's time for Market Explainer, your number one business news podcast. Hosted by Danny and the big man. And it starts right now.
Frontier and Spirit Airlines. Frontier Spirit sounds like the name of a hipster church.
But, it kind of does. Come on down to Frontier Spirit.
That's not how they talk. They go,
I'm sorry.
Hey, bros, come down to Frontier Spirit, man. Frontier Spirit Youth. We got to come. Like,
I'm sorry. My voice doesn't work like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, mine does. So these two companies suck. Have you ever flown Spirit?
I've never flown either one of you, and you know what? And good. Look, bless your heart. And true Texas way, bless your heart if you've flown either one of these. Okay.
Yeah. I don't. So if federal regulators approve the deal, which I expect they will,
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
Their share even combined only makes them the fifth largest carrier at like 5-something%. Right, like it's literally, there is the four big ones, right? Your American Airlines, Southwest Airlines, Delta, and United. Those are your big four, right? By mass, right? And then everybody else is in a completely different category.
Southwest acquired somebody like in the last 10 years. Who
was it?
That?
It wasn't like
I'll look this up.
I don't remember. But yes, they did. But the point is, I didn't even know until this story that they actually put Frontier, Spirit, and I think another one in what they literally have a category, ULCC, ultra low cost carriers. Didn't even know that was a category for an airline, but ultra low, you know what I mean? And look, here's what I did find interesting about this story is it's actually the smaller one of the two, Frontier, wanting to essentially buy out Spirit. They're calling it a merger, but it's the smaller one that wants to buy the bigger one.
Spirit has a pretty gnarly reputation. So I don't think anybody would want to get bought by Spirit. But Spirit getting bought, and all that's going to happen is they repaint some planes, and then they get their slots at the airports. Now, an addendum to this story is that right now in the world, airports require a certain amount of flights for you to take off. So this is unrelated to the specific merger, but still interesting is there's a policy pre-Panini that you have to fly a certain amount of flights out of an airport to keep your ability to ground planes there.
Gate access and yada yada.
Yeah, and the FAA requires you, if you get a commercial airline licensure from FAA, they do require you to fly certain flights because, you know, the airline industry used to be heavily regulated. And it was deregulated, I think it was under Carter. And what happened in that was simply that, like, they said, hey, we're going to deregulate the crap out of you, but you still have to do X, Y, and Z. And some of it's like, you have to fly out of certain rural airports a certain amount of time so that people in these small towns have access to air travel and so on and so forth. But what's happened is because of there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it. It was the Panini. People stopped flying places. And what's happened is it was a large sum. 28,000 flights took off out of various airports, like Frankfurt and so forth, empty. 27,000 flights have taken off empty because they were just required to.
They were required to by some kind of, I'm sure
regulatory hurdle that they can't get around. Which
you've got to.
Every other industry was just like, oh, yeah, you need a license to do this, but it's the Panini. Don't worry about it. Like, I got pulled over for expired tabs. I had the tabs in the trunk of my car.
Right.
And he's like, your tabs are expired, but don't worry about it, because I'm sure you can't even go to the DMV. I'm like, the DMV's right there. You can see the line outside of people. But, okay.
So, yeah, I actually had to go because of you had to get the new driver's license, so I had to go during that, and it was the whole 6 feet apart in line, and you know what I mean?
You got the enhanced? I didn't bother.
I did. I did get the enhanced. I had to.
No, I'm not getting it.
You're going
I
to get the
refuse.
enhanced. You will.
No, I
Anyway,
refuse.
look, obviously regulators have to approve any deal when it comes to airlines and stuff like that because there's just not as many of them as you would think
Right.
that there is. You know, like
No, I'm always surprised that there's this many airlines. I'm always blown away that there's and I don't see how ULCCs, the ultra low cost carriers, make any money. I don't get how they do.
I don't know either, and you know, I've always thought because you have to have, and we've talked about this before, you have to have the at least the appearance of competition, right?
Right.
We live in a world in America where we have to have at least an appearance because we do have anti-monopoly laws, right? So to protect the consumer from price gouging, right? So I don't know whether, you know, do any of these companies profit share in any way? Like, is Southwest Airlines propping up Frontier Airlines at certain airports in
No.
some way?
I
I don't
I
know.
I would tell you if you look at the structure of most airlines, it's like, oh, today you're flying American Airlines, and it's flown by Air blah blah blah. It's some
Mm-hmm.
other company. So there's some weird tier system where
Mm-hmm.
it's American Airlines, but it's a regional airline, American Eagle in this part of the country. And I think in real estate you'd call it cost segregation, where they're going, okay, we're going to isolate these handful of areas. So American Airlines does meet the requirements of flying in rural parts of the country, but we're going to
Mm-hmm.
send all of our old planes up to American Eagle, and then there's a separate corporation, and it's blah blah blah. It's so they're all gaming it, but
Because
this
car
merger,
manufacturers do that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
To meet gas mileage requirements, they
yeah.
buy
So
credits from each other
from
and
Tesla, yeah,
in
Tesla's
different places and
until recently, Tesla's biggest part of their earnings was selling credits.
yeah, so that's what like so it wouldn't surprise me to find out, and again I don't know this, but it wouldn't surprise me that airlines don't use credits in some kind of
Some
similar
sort of
way
some, yeah.
at airports because you're talking about Spirit Airlines in August.
Right.
2,000 flights were canceled.
Oh, that's not a big deal.
Okay?
That's fine.
2,000.
I'm sure it's fine.
Two,
I'm sure it's not a
2,000.
big deal. Yeah. I'm just saying I've flown uh Frontier one time. And so I'm from, I'm originally from the Midwest. I'm from Minnesota, and in my hometown there was an airline called Sun Country. It was started by a bunch of Northwest pilots who now, Northwest is Delta.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the low cost airline that I used to fly as a kid, but they had this thing called first class, and it was inexpensive, and that was like cool. Like we would get to go first class. So I just like I think it's interesting because these companies got this is it's it's when two pieces of crap decide to make one piece of crap.
Well,
It's
that's the
still
entire
it's
story.
just it's still a bigger piece of garbage,
Yeah, that's the entire story. Does two weak companies merging make a strong company?
So I just wonder if they're going to start adding in. Are they going to rip off Southwest's model, because that makes a lot of sense? Where you charge one thing to fly, because if you look at Southwest, it's one of the most successful cheap airlines in the country, right? In the
But they
world,
built a
probably.
reputation of doing that. They use much bigger airlines. They do other
Airplanes,
thing.
yeah,
I'm sorry, airplanes. The actual airplanes themselves. They use
right.
much bigger airplanes. Right. They strategically grew themselves in such a way that we're going from big market to big market. We're going to
And
ignore small markets. Right.
right.
That kind of stuff. Go ahead.
And by the way, they only land in most towns. If there's two airports, there's the major and the regional. They usually land at the regional because it's cheaper. They only own one type of plane, right?
Right.
And I learned this from them. I own one type of sock. Makes my life so much easier because I don't have to. I just pile all the socks in a box,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wear one type of sock. So Southwest had a strategy which has made them successful. And there's a company called Chick fil A. We all know how successful Chick
Mm-hmm.
fil A is. There's another company called Steak Shack, something like, I forget what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There was one in Round Rock that closed by the Hy-Vee, but
Oh yeah, that was. I think it was Steak Shack or It's a well known one. You see it in movies
Steak
and stuff like
something.
Steak
Yeah,
Shack or Shack and something like that.
whatever.
Anyway,
That guy, they got bought by a private equity firm in San Antonio, and he just basically went through the entire process that Chick fil A goes through and ripped it off and
right.
said, here's how I'm going to build franchisees is Chick fil A was so successful. So they changed their marketing now says, you have a heart of service. It's a burger franchise. Calm down. Okay. But what Frontier can do is say, okay, we're going to streamline and we have, this number of planes. We're going to sell them off. We're going to order newer used ones that are this model so that your mechanics only carry one series of parts.
Right.
And then you go, hey, where isn't Southwest flying right now? And how can I, as Frontier, fill in where they aren't and, maybe give me some direct flights some places? Because Southwest for a while was giving me direct flights and they weren't, and they're not now. And it bums me out because
Well, yeah, because they're look, so a company like Southwest. I know several Southwest employees, and they keep employees forever
which
because of
is
the benefits
crazy.
of
Correct.
working for the company and stuff like that. But they're strategic. That's one of the things they do very well is they are constantly changing and looking for what's best for the company. Now, again, that may not like you and I go because I've seen the same thing, right? Yeah, okay, they don't
Right.
have a direct flight from Austin to where I want to go. I've got to go to Houston or I've got to go to Dallas to get a direct flight. You know what I
Right.
mean, or whatever. But they're making their stockholders, which I also include me, right? Is
Right.
that they're making their stockholders money because they're constantly strategically looking at, hey,
You get 10 shares of something and start talking about how you own the company. So
hey, you
okay.
own one share. You own part of the company. All right, that's the way stock
That
works.
is
The
true.
point
That
is,
is true.
I've been actually buying. I started buying Southwest years ago because Southwest, much like other what they call blue chip stocks,
Right.
have what they call drip plans, uh, direct. Why
Whatever.
am I
It
drawing a
doesn't.
blank? Drip plans, essentially, where they take all these stocks that have dividends, and
Okay.
it's that's what it is, dividend reinvestment plans, where
Okay.
you essentially take if you own a share, once you own an initial share, Johnson and Johnson, Coca
Right.
Cola, right? These big
They pay
companies,
dividends.
they
Yeah.
pay dividends, and what giving even that first share allows you on a monthly or every two
Whatever.
weeks
Yes.
you can invest and they buy portions of shares for you, and then
Okay.
you look up and 10 years later you own, right,
Yeah.
hundreds of shares of stock in that given company. Your
Right.
dividends have bought you more shares of stock in that company.
Correct. Yeah.
Your average cost, right,
Yeah.
averages out and yada yada. It's an easy way to invest in blue chip companies without going and buying a big chunk at one time, right?
Okay. Makes
But
sense.
anyway, look, the point is they're going to do things that Frontier and Spirit are never going to do because they either A, don't have the ability, or B, the cost up front of paying personnel that can do those kind of things, the
Right.
software that can do those kind of things. And look, it's not all perfect. We all remember what 3 weeks ago, a month ago, Southwest Airlines over a period of a weekend canceled thousands of flights because
Correct.
they rely on a domino effect.
Right.
Okay, they literally Southwest Airlines, unlike some of these other bigger carriers, they don't have home bases for their staff, meaning
Okay.
their pilots and their flight attendants and those kind of things. They domino effect. They literally schedule everything out where if you're going from Florida to Dallas as
Yeah.
a flight attendant, then you're getting on a flight that's going from Dallas to Los Angeles, right? That
Right.
flight going from Dallas to Los Angeles relies on that crew getting to Dallas before that next one leaves because that's the
Correct.
crew getting on the flight. They
Right.
don't have another crew on standby in Dallas
Right.
like some of these other places where, okay, all of our flight attendants, right, they have hubs.
Right. 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 Like
Southwest doesn't do that. So when you have
Right.
a major, like in that time, there was a major storm, right, or whatever,
Whatever.
over a big airport, like in Florida, right? You have a couple
Right.
of big ones and your staff can't get out or get in, the
Right.
domino falls everywhere else.
Right. Yeah. So, there's a couple other low cost airlines like Sun Country, like I mentioned, and Allegiant. Now, this takes one player off the table, and Spirit's a big player. I mean, it's big enough that there people make jokes about it. So it's a meme. I just think that everything you just described in the last 2 years that have made air flight and the airline industry rough. But because, by the way, at the start of this whole thing in 2020, I incorporated an airline, and my airline was unable to get off the ground. So we got millions and millions of dollars in bailout money from the federal government, which I appreciate, by the way, from the taxpayers. And we will never be able to fly a plane. And also, same thing with my cruise line, which I also started and received billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars in
Well, both of these
bailout money.
companies, that's actually one of the reasons where it was in this article where they
Yeah,
might not be able to merger because there might be some weird rule. Obviously, both of these companies got dollars from the United States
yeah,
bailout of the airlines. Will
right.
the airlines allow them to combine that debt? Will they require them to pay that debt before they're able to merger? All of these kind of things. Spirit only takes up 5% of the U.S. airline market. Frontier only makes up 3.5%. So you're talking less than 9% of the entire airline marketplace
You're right.
combining these two companies. Now, maybe that's the way they look at it as far as the United States, and you know what I mean? Looks
Yeah,
at it and goes,
what difference
what am
does
I
it
doing
make?
here? I'm
Yeah.
combining a couple of little bitty, right? It's not a major
So,
thing.
and my question is, who's going out of business if they don't merge? And I think it's Spirit. I think financially, Frontier is probably doing better, which is why they can afford to acquire Spirit. But, you know,
Well, you're talking about a combined cash and stock deal, which I found it weird that they said merger at the beginning of this story, but
right.
really it's an acquisition for $6.6 billion.
Oops, that's a lot of money, though.
You know what I mean? So it's not a merger if you're giving a company $6.6 billion, right?
Well, I think they are. It's weird when the smaller companies buying. It's kind of like when the guy is shorter than the girl, and then they're spooning. That's what like this is
Hey,
like.
I'm shorter than my wife. Why do
I
you? What are you
know.
talking about?
I think I will also be shorter than whoever. But I'm just saying like that's kind of it's kind of you got to kind of call that a merger.
Well, but I
So
think you are right. I think it might come down to good old fashioned marketing. Frontier has a better name than Spirit.
yes,
Everybody knows about Spirit. Everybody's
yes.
seen videos and seen insanity and cancellations and all this kind of stuff. So if I was going to merge with a company and my name was worth garbage, I
Yeah,
would
I
want
would
the other
just
anyway.
yeah, because it's going to yield a better result. No, I just think that it's fascinating that this is happening, and I do expect there's going to be more consolidation in the low cost airlines because they can't make money. There's no
Well,
money.
that goes to the other question is and this is again you and I asked earlier in this story, how do they make money if they make any money at all, and if
Right.
they don't make money, how are they allowed to stay around?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a video out there. I'll try to find it. It's basically like most of the big airlines lose money on every flight, but they make money on their make believe currency called airline points, and that's how they earn money. Is they have their own currency, which is competition for the general marketplace, which is good. But it's that's where it comes from.
Well,
So
but I'm sure they make money on some flights and lose money on others, and you know what I mean, or whatever. But they're obviously making money. Most all of these companies are publicly traded companies
yeah, they're making money. Yeah,
that show obviously quarterly statements, right, and
right.
stuff like that. So one way or the other, pre Panini, right,
Right.
they were making money, right,
Correct.
and that kind of stuff. So they're making money somehow. But again, I find it very interesting that you have your big four, and then you have a half a dozen
Right. Little
nobodies.
stragglers.
How do they make? I don't understand how they make money. I don't.
And I bet you what ends up happening is there's a few mergers on their way to it just turns all into Frontier.
And maybe
Sun
that's the
Country.
case. But
I
then you
think
get into, is that enough airlines for the non monopoly
well,
rules
let's
and
compare it to another travel related industry, which is rental cars. Right? Most people don't realize that Enterprise, Avis, or National and Alamo combined companies and then merged with Enterprise.
enterprise? So those
And
are
then
all enterprise.
they're all Enterprise. I used to work for them.
Right.
Now, go ahead and compare that to, well, what did the rest of the stragglers do in the market when one guy behemouthed up? Well, when they merged. So Avis and Budget are one business. So it's really just three rental car companies, but there's 8 desks at the airport. They're all wearing different colors,
Which I
but
think
they're
goes
all
back to
affiliated.
the appearance of
Yeah,
non-monopoly versus, which is why you still have national, right? You
you're
still
right.
have enterprise. You have these different brands for the
What?
same
Yeah,
reason.
but last time I needed a car at when I was at an airport and I was getting a car and they didn't have the one I wanted with Alamo, the guy just calls over to Enterprise and they send him a car. He's like, "Oh yeah, they're all the same tag numbers." I'm like, "So then what was
What
you
was the
have?
point?
But you
What
have
was the point?
different rates. All of them at different rates. I got the best
Yes,
rate. So yeah, so it's all
it's
hilarious.
even more convoluted than you think. Like it's even
Yeah.
cloudier than you think. And I'm sure it's because again, certain regulation says that there has to be at
Well,
least the appearance.
Avis Avis is the luxury like this is the high end place where you rent a car. In Budget's the budget place, but they're always this. It's the same fleet.
I'm a Southwest Airlines and a enterprise guy through
Oh,
National. Like
okay.
National is my
Yeah.
because I get to pick my car, right? That's the thing with
Oh boy,
National.
yeah,
It's only at
yeah,
airports. You get off your plane, you go
yeah,
to the where the rental cars are, and it's called the National Emerald Club, right?
yeah. You
I
just walk
literally
up and
just
pick your
get
car.
into a car that I pick out of, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And I don't have to deal with a desk. I don't have to deal with anybody. So it's same thing with Southwest. It's easy for me. The
yeah,
only other airline I have ever flown other than Southwest is I've flown American a handful of times when Southwest just didn't fly to where I was going.
yeah. So and then we always have to fly up front, so it's always costing a bunch of money extra.
Yeah,
So
so that's the only one, and especially I love the ones where I'm flying into smaller places, and I get on American, and then I typically have to fly into Dallas or Houston, and then I
right,
get on what's called an American Eagle, which is
yeah.
about a plane the size of a bubblegum wrapper.
Well, no,
You
it's the
know,
size of
like
an F-250, but it's a plane.
it only has 3 seats. It has one seat, an aisle, and then
Yeah,
two
the
seats on
two.
the other
Yeah,
side, and I don't not a whole lot of rows, but
yeah,
it's a long narrow plane, which
right.
makes me feel like I'm gonna fall out of it.
Yeah, which my question is at that point, are we just all getting on a private jet? Isn't that what makes more sense?
That's
So,
what we need to do. We need a market explainer private jet.
yeah, I've been saying this for a while and listen to me.